I thought that the best way to be part of that world was. So I thought, there is an opportunity here. 60K subscribers on YouTube, reach 1 million views, the most common situation. Good market maturity, but low budget. The opposite situation, you have a lot of budget, but the market is not very mature. The candidates and your employees are great advocates of your product and solution. We have experienced it. It's hard. Spoiler.
Welcome to the KLIMB Podcast, Domitille.
Thanks for having me.
Super happy to have you on. Well, today we have a lot of topics to cover. As I was saying, I have my little note with me.
Cheat sheet.
Yeah. As you know, I have this podcast where I talk with a lot of different leaders in marketing, branding, design and stuff. And you guys reached out to me on LinkedIn. And I felt like it was a super interesting conversation to have with you. You recently joined Lemlist, if I'm right. And the company has other tool than just Lemlist. So I'm also curious about that. So you're going to tell us about it. Super happy to have you on. I do have a lot of questions, of course. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is the one I'm used to ask, is not exactly related yet to your job today. But I'm curious to understand what was like your very first job when you started. Like even the smallest gig that you had in the past. It can be working in shop, whatever. Just curious to understand like where you started, like your how you started earning your first money, and also the thing that I'm interested in is if you learned something at that time in that job, and do you think like you still have some of these apply to you today?
I love that question. And first of all, thanks to Annika, who is the one who reached out to you and spotted that podcast. And thanks, Annika. I'm really happy to be there. Thanks to you. So, okay, my first job. So a long time ago, not that long, but 13 years ago, I was ending my business school. And it was the very beginning of the French Tech, and everyone was starting to be super excited about tech in France. And I had a bit of FOMO because I felt I knew nothing about it, and my studies didn't really prepare me for this. So I thought that the best way to be part of that world was to launch my own company. And so that was actually my first real professional experience. I was lucky at that time, still living at my parents, doing some part-time jobs, and so I gave myself 1 year to launch a company and learn a lot out of it. And I'm gonna tell you this story, but basically, what this small entrepreneurship experience taught me is the power of demand gen, which is still something I'm deeply convinced about today. So about that company and why it taught me about demand gen. So I didn't know what to launch, to be honest, and I saw that there was a big market trend at that time that was DIY. I don't know if you remember, but everyone was going crazy about doing things on their own, learning how to basically do everything that our parents didn't want to do anymore. And it's funny because there were a lot of signs of excitement in the market, like big TV shows around it, trade shows that popped up everywhere in France, and the online content just sucked around it in French because we were really much behind. So I thought, there is an opportunity here. And basically with my co-founder, we decided to launch a little company around DIY, and we did things because we were really rookie, we did things in the wrong order. Like before we even had something to sell, we started building a media without really knowing it. And so I didn't know how to sew or to knit, but I took night classes, CAP couture, it's like a French training. And everything I learned there that was super technical, I turned it into very short YouTube videos. And really quick, we reached 60K subscribers on YouTube.
Cool.
Some videos organically reached 1 million views and a lot of comments because there was a space to take there, I guess.
Yeah.
And I made I guess complex stuff easy and in video and content that didn't really exist at that time in French. And And then we decided to start selling like more complex classes, and we launched our DIY e-learning app. But because we had like all this content, those short videos and blog posts around like sewing and knitting, we made our first like 10K revenue super fast without spending €1 in ad, because we already had like a community really involved. And so in the end, the project ended like 99% of the project launched by young folks, but it really told me about the power of demand gen, giving value first, educating your market to create credibility and traction, organic traction. And yeah, that's definitely stuck with me.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's super cool. It reminds me that, I mean, I started also as an entrepreneur. And so I have about the same, experience. With it. And you're helping me with the transition, of course, because the next question I had for you is, you've been like a founder at some point. You've been an individual contributor for different companies. Now you are more in the strategic role with the CMO at Lemlist. One thing that I was always wondering, when crafting my career, is like understanding where is my sweet spot, like zone de génie in French, so understanding where I'm good at and at what stage of company also, because sometimes you feel like I've tried it was a different time, but I've tried to work at Decathlon, very big corporation, and I felt like I was just one guy into a big company. I tried like smaller companies, like 20 people, full-time employees, and then I worked at Spendex, 600 people, and at some point I realized that I was good in some stages of growth rather than just it was just my thought behind it. Anyway, and so I'm wondering, how did you find your sweet spot between being a founder, between an IC, and between now being a CMO?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think my first advice is never stop doing stuff. Like, never stop being a doer, even if you're stepping up into a management or leadership role. Obviously, you can have a sweet spot and zone de génie in the management side of things, and you better have if you want to be a leader, right? But I would say never lose this sparkle, like the why in the first place you liked a job, because this is how you found something you're really good at. And basically, I think it's at the intersection of two things. Something you're really good at, because you have impact whenever you're doing it. People give you incredible feedback every time you're doing it. And second, something you love doing, and it's pretty easy to spot. It's when you are in a flow mode, like you're doing something and you don't even realize, and it's not feeling like an effort, basically. And so this is your genius zone, something that you're good at and that you love doing. And if we take marketing as a specific example, I think marketing is the most incredible job, because if you compare it to other jobs in tech, like product or sales, it's probably the most complex and versatile job. I mean, inside marketing, you have brand design, product marketing, content, growth, ads, ops. And so you cannot be perfect everywhere, right? So when you are a marketing leader, you are what I call a T-shaped profile. So basically, you have a good understanding of and a 360-degree understanding of mostly everything. But at some point, you need one vertical, which is the vertical part of the T, where you are really good at and you're able to go deep and do stuff yourself. Yeah. And this is your genius zone. So for instance, for me, it's mostly the PMM content branding side of things, which is why I made my first revenue as an entrepreneur with that. And also, which is why, for instance, today at Lemlist, I actually keep managing directly the people in that field. Whereas in the growth part of my team, I have an amazing co-leader, a head of growth, Erwan, who is actually handling himself the other part, because I know he's going to be better than me, and he is, So you need to recognize where you're really good at and where someone is better than you or can be better than you, and hire better people. Like he is definitely stronger than me on that side of things. So yeah, that's how I think you find your genius zone, keep doing things, and finding this crossroad between those two words.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just experiencing things. You're right. It's definitely the only thing, because sometimes you get stuck in one area, one field. I was mentioning earlier about my wife.
Yeah.
You're in customer success and you think you can only do this, and if you want to become a software engineer, you can. I mean, it's completely fine. So completely get it. At some point, you can find like your genius zone. And fun fact about Erwan, just mentioning it, we were together at The Family back in 2016, I think.
Of course you were.
So it was, he had a sneakers business, selling sneakers and stuff.
Yeah, everyone had like 10 different lives.
So it was quite fun. All right, and so now jumping into Lemlist, I know about the tool, but I know that the mother company, it's called Lempire, and you have a lot of different tools. So what is exactly doing the company today? I know that you guys are also acquiring different businesses, so you've grown over the past years. So yeah, I'm just curious to understand, how do you present the company?
Yeah, so I'm going to focus on Lemlist because right now we decided really to refocus. This is our flagship solution, and it's driving like amazing growth. And so Lemlist is basically a sales engagement platform that helps sales team reach their outbound quota and succeed in their prospection efforts. So it enables them to find qualified prospects, their contact information, contact them through email, but also LinkedIn, phone, WhatsApp, and all these perfectly syncs with the CRM, which is the mother tool for salespeople. So that's what basically Lemlist is doing. And yes, we did recently acquire a company, and you might have heard of it. It's named KLIMB. It's basically a sales intelligence software that adds a strong value proposition complementary to Lemlist in the short term, because Lemlist basically helps sales teams qualified meetings, secure qualified meetings, and then KLIMB records those meetings automatically and extract AI insight out of them, fill out the CRM, so sales team basically focus on selling and not on admin stuff. And so also that companies don't lose all the precious insights you have inside your discussions with your market. So that's the short-term vision. And the long-term vision, it's even more exciting. Basically, we believe that we really want to change the way people do prospection. We know everyone is tired about getting like irrelevant emails and phone calls, and we believe that's not the way the market should evolve. We believe that prospection can add value to everyone, and we believe this is just about reaching out to the right person at the right time with the right message. And we believe that tomorrow, integrating KLIMB and Lemlist will actually enable to have better quality prospection based on the discussion sales team has with their market, basically. So this is super exciting, and this is what we are doing today.
Okay, cool. Well, it's interesting you're mentioning KLIMB, because I talked to the founder like very early on. Yeah, when he started, like amongst the first beta users,
Nice.
And so at the time it was just pretty much a Loom alternative,
Yeah, it was it was an async meeting solution, and they pivoted like a year ago. So that's funny.
Yeah, and so it makes super sense now when you're mentioning it, and I love the way you presented it. Also, sales intelligence. It's not just about then meetings. It's about empowering the sales teams to just do their best work and stuff. So okay, makes sense. All right. Then we do have a lot of the questions that I know that we're going to be spending some more time on those. The first one is about, you just joined recently as a CMO at Lemlist, and one of the key questions you can ask yourself as a CMO is how do I start with different things? So how do I start with how do I go with my marketing strategy just in general? And part of this marketing strategy is, of course, content. And so the first question is, how do you start with content in general?
Yeah, this is the question I heard the most, like when CEOs reach out on LinkedIn and like, oh, I just hired the head of marketing and where should I start? And often I just ask back questions to them to help them, because I think it really depends on two things. It depends first on your market's maturity, and second on your budget. So what is market maturity? Basically, it's the percentage of your TAM, your addressable market, that is ready to buy. Yes, you can buy like studies to know that, but basically you have signals that tell you this. First, you have internal signals, like how successful your sales team are even without marketing. If you're having good traction and there is already demand and you have good win rates, basically it probably means you're in a pretty mature market. And then you have other signs, like do you have competitors? Like if you have no competitors, it's probably a bad sign, in the sense of it's probably the sign that you are at the very beginning of a market and like you need to evangelize a lot. Are there like trade shows or events or meetups around, you know, the industry you're in and the problem you're solving? All those are signs. Obviously, LLM requests, searches on Google, all this. So you have two situations: low market maturity and strong market maturity. And then you have the budget. Budget, I mean, like for both people and operations. Marketing operations, it's like advertising, but also tooling. Like, do you have budget to buy like a good CMS for your team and a good marketing automation software? All this. You have a lot of benchmarks around this. Like, it really depends, but basically most of the benchmarks would say, and it depends also on your, you know, revenue and growth. But for a company between like 1 million to 10 million ARR with a pretty like decent growth, if you're above 5% of your ARR, between 5 to 10% of marketing budget, it's pretty decent and pretty good. If you're below, it's pretty small. And I would say, as a leader, basically, if you arrive and the budget that is given to you doesn't allow you to run consistently 2 channels for a decent period of time, like 6 months, let's say, and having 1 extra FTE in your team, it probably means you have a low budget, right? And it's gonna be complicated. So you take that. Let's start with the most common situation, which is good market maturity, but low budget. Basically, when, you know, like Series A's company, post-Series company hire their first head of marketing, they have good market traction, but they're being like risk adverse, and I get it, and they're right about their budget. So, and here it's often the time where CEOs are like, okay, let's launch a podcast and you know, like do crazy stuff. And I'm like, but no, like you need to focus on capturing demand because you don't have a lot of budget. So in 6 months, if your CMO didn't bring like qualified pipeline for your sales or decent revenue, you're gonna fire them. So start with capturing demand. It means like running bottom of the funnel ads. It means creating bottom of the funnel content. Like take your top clients and create really cool testimonials that your sales are gonna use to improve their win rate, stuff like this. Do bottom of the funnel blog posts. Like for instance, if you have a lot of competitors, write a blog post, turn alternatives to your brand name, and you're gonna rank on this, and it's gonna probably bring like good business. So yeah, that's the first my first advice if you're in that situation. And then you have the opposite situation where basically you have a lot of budget, but the market is not very mature. It happens in certain like very innovative companies. It's super exciting, but it's tricky too, because it will take time for marketing to have an impact, because you need to create demand. So here it's about full demand generation, and here it's about indeed educating the market around the problem you solve, doing benchmarks, studies, thought leadership, creating credibility around your brand.
It was a bit the beginning of Lemlist, right? This
Yeah,
phase more.
I mean,
Educating
exactly.
the market, and then
That's
now
what
you're in different phase.
Exactly, like that's what Guillaume Moubèche did in the early beginning. Like he did a lot of content to educate around outbound, how to do good outbound. He basically did build in public on LinkedIn, shared everything he did, and he spent time educating. So that's indeed a really good example. Then you have like the sweet spot, which is mature market and a lot of budget, which is where we are at Lemlist right now. So you can do both. You educate and you capture the existing demand. here, my only advice, if you are hired as a CMO in this sweet spot, hire people, because they're going to be frustration if you don't have enough firepower, because you have a lot to do and you have the money. And sometimes having the money is not the issue, it's how spending it, because it takes people to spend wisely the money and have an impact. And then you have the final corner, which is no budget and no market maturity. Dead zone. Don't go there. Like, I would say to every CMO, like, this is a risky zone.
Yeah, I get it. And I mean, one thing that struck me is, I mean, you talked about budget, and still, like, I'm just wondering, like, if you don't have, I mean, maybe you don't have if you don't have the market maturity and you don't have the budget, is there anything you can do, just or if, like, or is it just, maybe it's just about, you know, educating and trying to still educate the market until it reaches maybe
exactly
maturity?
I mean, that's what Guillaume did, actually. Yeah. That's more like the very beginning of Lemlist. I mean, I'm not sure the market wasn't mature at all, but early, still a lot of education. And Guillaume was bootstrapped. Like, he launched everything with his own money, no VC behind. And so that's why he did the marketing himself for a long time. So that's exactly what happened. And then when, you know, like, things started like running, he could hire and launch more stuff.
And one thing that is interesting about Lemlist, I think also because of the nature of the tool that you guys are selling, you were like early users of your own tool, probably. Like Guillaume was probably using Lemlist also to reach out and do stuff. But for a lot of different companies, sometimes you're in a space where you're not like expert, you're not like your persona, you're not like your own users of your own tool. And I'm just wondering, how do you create like this expert content just for the specific personas? Because a lot of the time you're just like, pretending.
Yeah, that's a really like tricky part. I mean, 90% of B2B marketing teams are, I mean, I'm maybe making up this number, but are not selling to other B2B marketing teams. I mean, the 10% that are, stay there, because this is a sweet spot, basically. Like, you can document everything you're doing for the sake of educating your market and convincing, like, so that's great. But yeah, most of B2B marketing teams are marketing to CFOs or head of people. And so, yes, you are basically trying to educate an audience about a job you're not doing yourself. And so how do you make sure this is not fluff, you know? And I think the good news is that there are some ways of getting like deep knowledge and bringing that to the market. You can rely first on your own internal employees. Like, if you're marketing to CFOs and that you have a finance guy inside, basically go and talk with him and try to sit next to him and see what he's doing, document what he's doing. So yeah, for instance, at Lemlist, we leverage a lot the sales team, and we actually are very lucky because they're super nice with us, and a lot of sales are helping us doing webinars or documenting what they're doing, allowing us to share the playbook, etc. So yeah, leverage your own team. Second, leverage your customers. Customers, if they are happy with your product, obviously, they will be willing to share good best practices and also like pains they were having. And so talk with your customers. One of the most successful pieces of content we launched recently is a piece of content that we did with some of our customers. So we came to some of VP of sales and head of sales, and then we asked them to share their sales and outbound playbook. It's not about how they use Lemlist, it's how they run outbound in general, and share how they KPIs to their team, how they follow success, if they have like any tips and tricks that work super well for them, sharing concrete stuff. And that's the best content you can share in the market. Like, something else you can do also is leverage partner if you have partners. Yeah. For instance, we work a lot with outbound agencies. They're like top experts. They're running outbound campaigns all day long, and we launch playbooks and content, educational content with them, and we publish with them on LinkedIn. This has been like very successful also. And you can also leverage communities. There are a lot of Slack, Facebook, name it, communities around specific jobs in the market. Try to be in those communities, first to listen and learn a lot, because people talk about the issues they have all the time. And if you can, partner with them to create content. For instance, our CEO is part of an ops community, and he every year he runs with them a benchmark around ops budget issues, and ops is another person that's super important for Lemlist. And this is a very successful educational pieces for our audience that's 100% legit, because it's made by ops for ops people. And my final take is that I think that I'm pretty sure that in the next years, marketing teams are gonna hire experts inside the team. I think that's the best way in the end to create expert content, and not being like dependent on all the people I talked about. So for instance, recently we hired a salespeople inside the marketing team. He's gonna join in a month, and I still want him to do sales because I still want him to be relevant, you know. But I told him, your job is not gonna be to hit quota. It's gonna document whatever you do and teach like what works, what doesn't. And I think that's super interesting, because if you're marketing to CFOs, you could hire an ex-finance guy and ask him to keep doing maybe finance with your finance team 20% of the time, but then just going on podcasts or at events and create content around it.
You stole my comment. I wanted to say exactly the same thing, and
really?
This was my take. Like, I completely get it, and this is to reiterate on this example you shared. Like at Spendesk, we hired like very early on finance people, of course, and accountants, and it helped a lot.
In the marketing team?
No, not in the marketing team. But that was like linked to your first example about. Of course, like reaching out to internal people and having skilled people. So that's something I completely get. But then I realized exactly the same thing that you said. A friend of mine from Spendesk, Jérémy Goyot, he hired like in his marketing team a YouTuber. He has like it's like a proper YouTuber. The guy has like 3 million followers on YouTube and stuff.
Smart.
And he's now the content creator at the mobile first company. And I think that's the mentality you need to have, like hiring expert people in their field and having some proper YouTuber that does like stuff for a company. I think it's a super smart move. And it's exactly the same thing I was asking myself. I think we want to communicate a lot about our agency, and and I was looking for a community manager. I was looking for a community specialist and stuff. And I was like, it's not gonna work. And so now we're more shifting this hire, more like we're looking for a designer that wants to run a community.
Of course.
And it's completely different. And so you shift the mindset of the person.
Love it.
And I think it makes super sense. So and I think a lot of companies should think about this, and I think it's a good play. Like you said, having a salesperson directly in the marketing team is definitely going to help, and you're not going to be bothering the salespeople.
Exactly.
Hey, I just need your time, to write an ebook. So yeah, I get it. Okay. You talked a lot about also reaching out to your internal teams and employees and stuff. And one of the questions I had for you is, how do you launch and scale employee advocacy? Because of course, you need your employees to sometimes also do marketing for your company. And I think just maybe you're going to say about it, but anyway, I think one of the good strategy, and I don't know if it's you guys at Lemlist or someone else that mentioned it in some YouTube videos or something, but at some point I heard like the strategies of having Avengers, like one specialist for each field, and that person is super good at creating content on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So first, a disclaimer: it's not an end in itself to launch advocacy, and I'm going to talk about LinkedIn, but obviously it depends where your audience lies. Like sometimes I have CEOs that are having FOMO, like I want to launch LinkedIn advocacy. I'm like, okay, what are you selling? And they're like, oh, I'm in the I don't know, like health tech industry, and like they realize that none of their target like audience and buyers are actually on LinkedIn. And like, so what do you want to launch it? I mean, it's good for yourself, obviously, but first ask why you want to do it. But then for most companies, I think it's an amazing channel because it does two things. It actually creates a powerful own distribution channel. And second, it creates a lot of credibility and trust around your brand. So it's basically between demand gen and lead gen, which is amazing. So if your audience is there, and yeah, I mean, that's probably a good play. Avenger, that was actually, I think, a concept created by Germinal, that was a growth agency launched by Grégoire Gambato at the time. And I remember I loved their this concept of basically saying, you don't want everyone in your company to talk about the same thing because imagine you're selling, I don't know, you're in HR tech. You don't want everyone to speak about HR because the only person that's going to be legit to do that is your VP of HR and HR people in their team, you know? It's not only about leaders. So Avenger theory is that everyone is basically creating educational content around their own scope and genius zone. And that's fine. For instance, Lemlist is mainly selling to sales and ops, so obviously content posted by our VP of sales and VP of ops, and obviously our CEO who has like a strong sales flavor is super important. Also content posted by Erwan, who is VP of growth and speaks a lot of outbound team. That's like the best because that's the sweet spot, right? It's their job, but it's also like your target audience. But then it's not why I will myself speak about sales. I mean, I'm a CMO, so I wouldn't be legit. So I speak about marketing and what I learn every day. And which takes me to another important part is that whenever companies are deciding to launch employee advocacy or to have their employee being vocal on LinkedIn and sharing their expertise, they should accept one thing, that there is a risk that those people at some point will leave, and that because they're building their own voice and personal branding, that's super powerful for your own company. But yeah, sometimes you're like, but what if they left? And like, what if they leave? And like, yeah, that's a risk you must accept. Yeah. You know, that's the game, I would say. Yeah, definitely. But that's super important. And second thing, it's like accepting as a leader that people need to be able to share interesting stuff. And by interesting, it's non-promotional and numbers, failures, success, because sometimes leaders are scared to share success because like everyone is gonna like duplicate, like all competitors are gonna listen read every post and doing the same. No, it doesn't work that way, right? So it's because employee advocacy works when you trust people and you're not like reading everything that they're posting and validating everything. Like generic messages, validating everything beforehand, it doesn't work. Like you just need to enable people to do this and give them time to do it also. This is an important of stuff. It takes time to write on LinkedIn. Like if you don't want to write crap, it takes time. You need to think about like what's gonna be useful to my audience. And yes, AI can help a lot, but AI is there to help with the copywriting. You give it like great instructions about how you write, post structure, basic stuff like this. But in the end, AI is not the one giving the inputs, the initial input. It's you. It has to come from you. This is how you create the best content, in my opinion. And the best way to do this is before you launch your own personal brand is to validate your like 2 to 3 to 4 topic clusters. What are you gonna talk about? As a CMO, for instance, I'm gonna talk about maybe people and leadership topics, how you hire people, how you manage a team. I'm gonna obviously speak about maybe marketing, distribution and channels, and maybe about brand and content. So you validate like your topic clusters, and then you try to follow this editorial line basically, and be consistent about it.
Yeah. I love the fact that you mentioned that the leaders should have like confidence in their teams to post about it and not like be reviewing every single piece of content that goes out there. And I completely agree. And something I tell to my team every single time is like, I'm going to be super proud of you if at some point you get hired, like in, I don't know, let's 3 years minimum, but like 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Because if you get to be hired, it means that someone valued your expertise, and because you did this at your time at KLIMB.
Exactly.
And if you put content out there, you're just going to be yourself, like in this, I don't know, in this flow of educating yourself, being on constant benchmark, looking at what are the best practices. You're gonna want to get better at your job, and so on your day to day, you're gonna be loving even more what you do. But you're right. The thing is, even like, I mean, it's every single time, like les cordonniers sont les plus belles chaussées, you know, in French. You have to look it up. I mean, you don't have the time. I don't even have the time just to manage and put content out there for our own portfolio, sometimes. And even though we are designers, we need to show what we did, and so it's difficult. And I don't know how you. It's not a question I had, but like, how do you just prioritize them? How do you make time for the content creation?
You better.
You just have to.
to be honest, sometimes I don't want to sell something that's not true. Like most of my posts, I wrote them when my daughter is sleeping. Yeah. So yeah, it takes time and it takes efforts. Yeah. But I think the more you're doing it, the easier it gets, and also you can recycle more and more. Like when you start doing, like, investing time and effort into your personal brand, you start thinking about frameworks, experiences you had, and then you start doing podcasts like this one, and you can start also reusing, like some stuff I'm saying here today, sorry, but I already told them in some LinkedIn posts, and that's fine, and that's how also, like, you don't have to create everything from scratch every time, of course not. So that's also something, but it takes time and consistency to arrive there. And like, don't look at followers. I mean, it's important. I look more at engagement and qualitative comments I got from people. Like sometimes I have a LinkedIn post, I have like bad engagement. You don't know why, because the algorithm, sometimes it's a bit weird. But then I received this LinkedIn message about a head of marketing that's saying, oh my gosh, this is such an issue I had. I tried to convince my CEO, I didn't know what to start. I use your LinkedIn post to convince him, to give me money to do this and that. That's the best, reward you can have. So yeah, be consistent. Don't look too much the engagement part, because it's hard. It's getting harder and harder to have engagement and followers on LinkedIn. That's the natural trend in social media. Whenever they're launching, they want a lot of users to post. So like, and whenever they're launching a new format, you see this. Like for instance, with video on LinkedIn, the first stats were amazing because they want to push it, so they're making it easier, and then it drops. So yeah, it's important to look at those metrics, obviously, but not to be 100% focused on them.
Yeah, completely agree. And
I was saying, I love what you said about KLIMB credibility and having, like, being proud of your employee leaving, and then it's the little X mention that people have on their LinkedIn profile when they're saying like,
X,
you see head of marketing at Aircall X.
That's the goal.
Exactly, that's the goal. X, and that means your company is somehow famous. You know.
It makes a super good link to employer branding, so that's perfect. I'm just gonna hold this question. One thing I wanted to add on what you said, you mentioned you were talking about priority, making time for content. I forgot. Je vais me rappeler. Tu disais quoi à la fin?
Not being too focused on the KPIs.
Oui, c'est ça. KPIs, metrics. Okay. One thing I wanted to touch base on what you were saying just before, not to be too focused on KPIs and stuff, is the fact that the algorithm on LinkedIn are changing every single time. And so in the end, I think the advice is just put content out there.
Yeah,
that's just what I want
to say.
Good
content out there.
Good content out there. Yeah, and think, exactly, not AI generated. And I mean, you use, as we said, you use AI just for your inputs and make things as you want.
Exactly.
And avoid like typos in your text. But the rest, of course, I mean, just put content out there. And especially like in the recent weeks, you've seen like the algorithm on LinkedIn. Now you see posts from 3 weeks old, like on your feed, like when you just launched LinkedIn. So it doesn't make sense to say I'm going to post at noon on Monday.
No.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
And especially now, depending on your product, but if you have a global product, there are time zone differences and stuff. Post whenever you can and when is the good timing. So if you want to write poster, later during the night.
I still post them on the morning.
You, of course. Don't post like at midnight. But yeah, I completely agree. Like just put content out there and the rest will follow. Perfect link to employer branding, like making sure that, employees want at some point to have their X on their LinkedIn profile.
Lemlist,
Lemlist. And so, as a CMO, one of the topics that sometimes, most of the time, gets completely deprioritized from all the different investments that you can make with your budget is employer branding. And so I wanted to have your take on why does it still matter today? I think that you have a pretty good employer brand today at Lemlist. There was this era of welcome to the jungle, everyone, but it was the era, I don't know how to say that in English, the apogee, of
recruitment. Everyone was recruiting.
Everyone was recruiting chief happiness officers everywhere and stuff. And now we're talking less about employer brand, and I think it still matters a lot. I'm struggling to find a senior designer if someone is out there looking for a senior designer in an agency. But anyway, just your take on employer branding.
For the little anecdote, when I was launching my own company, the DIY one, we were in an incubator in Paris, and we were in the same promotion as Welcome to the Jungle. So it was the very beginning of this like employer branding vibe. So I saw it, like climbed it. It's funny. Why does it matter? I think the first answer is pretty simple. It's because hiring the best is what makes you successful. It's the number one criteria for success and also for failure. For instance, right now, I'm really behind in terms of I think my team is way too small compared to ambitions and objectives because recruitment is hard. So I think that's definitely the number one criteria of success, and talent density is what companies should look at. And employer branding helps a lot because now people are not only looking for, and especially in tech, for a good salary. They want a good environment, exciting, and so on. And then there are also other takes about employer branding. First, the candidates and your employees are great advocates of your product and solution, especially in informal moments, and you should never forget about this. They could be tomorrow's prospects too, because people just move and change. For those reasons. And also, employer branding can crossroad with brand tout court, with brand. I have a funny anecdote around it about a content I did for employer brand that in the end happened to resonate a lot around our core target audience, sales, and I think had a really cool impact in terms of marketing and branding, and not only employer branding. So we were doing our offsite, Lemlist annual offsite with the whole company in Tenerife, and we were doing this nice boat tour. And I was looking, and it was funny because I could see the different teams really being CS being with CS and tech being with tech, which is normal, and they were kind of doing cliche stuff. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a funny video for TikTok. And so I started filming them, and tech guys playing board game in the shadow, and marketing tanning, and obviously sales that were bragging in the deck and taking pictures of themselves. And I posted this video that was more meant to present the different teams at Lemlist, and obviously showing that we were doing a boat tour in Tenerife, which is nice. And in the end, like, it kind of went viral on TikTok, and most of the comments were about sales. And it was like, oh, sales are such frat bros, and like, do you hire sales? And so salespeople started commenting and viewing this video. Okay. So that's just a funny example, but to show that employee branding can really also have a good impact on your brand and target audience. And one way of making sure it does, it's validate 3 pillars before you start investing time and content on your employer branding, which are the mission of your company, why do you exist, and again, it goes back to your audience, and it matters to your employees and candidates because they want to have an impact and they want to understand why they're working every day. So never forget this. Second is the story of your company, because where you come from says a lot about where you want to go, and it matters to work on that storytelling and narrative for your employer branding, but also for your brand. And finally, your company values, and making sure that they are not just bullet points on the wall, and that you are able to illustrate them with concrete examples of behaviors of your own employees. And for instance, at Lemlist, we post a lot on LinkedIn, as we've talked about. And I think a lot of stories we post actually show that our values are true. Like get shit done, being transparent. If you read all the stories posted by our CEO, myself, it gives concrete example of how people every day or embodying those values. So yeah, I think if you get this right, then the content and the campaigns you're gonna do around employer branding are gonna have a positive impact on your brand and target audience.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned TikTok, and so the first question is, does that mean that you have a TikTok as a company? And so just curious, like, what's your take on having a TikTok for a B2B company?
Yeah, I think like TikTok is super interesting because first of all, most B2B companies are not there. So it's a blue ocean space. And that's interesting because you don't have that many distribution channels where no one is yet. Also TikTok, we're talking, about how engagement is a bit dropping on LinkedIn. TikTok is still one of the, I think, only channel where you can have real virality.
Yeah, without any followers.
Without any followers, exactly. And this is really strong and super interesting. And also, I think this is where the new generation of buyers are. Anecdote about it. One day we had a pike of free trials and we couldn't understand where it was coming from because it was mainly people typing Lemlist and doing the free trial. And we're like, but what happened? And someone in the marketing team discovered that a student actually did a video on TikTok about how he used Lemlist to find internships. So it's not our core target audience, so the free trials were not qualified, but still it's funny to see the virality and how it impacted conversion. So imagine it was like a genuine salesperson doing the same. It could have been like qualified free trials. So it really showed that the new generation is actually buying with this kind of content. And I think this is something every brand should start betting on. And finally, it's a black box about how and what has an impact on LLMs. But like, it's probably 90% sure that social media content posted by genuine people is having an impact on LLMs. So I would say for all those reasons, it makes sense. But we have experienced it. It's hard. Spoiler. It's hard because it cannot be promotional. Even educational content, I mean, there is good educational content on TikTok, but I think in the B2B space, it's not the one that has the most potential for virality. The one that works is the entertaining content, relatable content. Coolness. And this one is the hardest to produce. And also, it's hard to tell the impact, to be honest, in the short run. Like, yes, you're going to have likes and you're going to have views. And yes, I'm pretty convinced that in the end, it creates love and trust for your brand, which is great, but it takes a lot of time. Yeah. And it's not that easy to produce. Like, not everyone is corporate bro. Like, do you know corporate bro? It's a sales dude in the US. He's very famous because he started posting entertaining mini sketches about his life as a sales guy, and it's like super funny because he's very talented. Now it's like his full-time job because he's super famous on all platforms. But not everyone can be corporate bro. Like it takes a lot of talent and probably a lot of time to get there. So my learnings here to finish here is that first we try to externalize TikTok because I was like, we don't know nothing about TikTok, so we should get the help of an agency. And I think it didn't really work out super well. They were really talented, but the thing is that TikTok works when it's 100% genuine. And the videos that went viral were videos that basically we did ourselves, like the one on the boat. Or when I started filming our own salespeople at the office and did like funny mini videos out of this. Like, for instance, I had this sales guy that was making up Spanish and Italian words because he wanted to close like the call with prospects, and he wouldn't talk at all Spanish or Italian, but he was trying super hard, and it was so funny. And so I created a mini video out of it, like when you're sales and you want to reach your quota, but you don't speak like foreign languages, and like it kind of like went viral much better than other highly produced videos that we did with the agency because I think it felt more genuine and authentic.
I get it. You're right. Well, I might think about launching a TikTok anytime soon. Well, that's a lot of cool insights so far. We have like less than 10 minutes. And I did have like a few hot takes questions to end.
Okay, let's go.
So we're not going to be spending 5 minutes on each questions, but it's more like your takes on a few stuff. So the first one is like, what's like an underrated skill people should build early on their career?
Okay, this one is going to be short and fast because we already talked about it, but I would say personal brand. Like the best career are not pushed, they're pulled. And so post on LinkedIn if you're not allowed to, join Slack communities, just also give before asking, and that's how you're gonna build your expertise and personal brand and be owner of your own career.
Like the student that posted on TikTok about Lemlist.
And actually I got my last 2 jobs thanks to personal brand, and at that time I didn't have a strong one, but it's more like you talk with people, you share insight with CEOs, for instance, as a CMO, and this is how like you build your own opportunities. I
agree. Okay. Next one is, what do you look for when hiring someone?
I think 3 important stuff when I'm looking to hire. First, it's the grit. Like, I want ambitious people that always want to go the extra mile, that are passionate about what they do. So you see people that are asking extra questions, that are already suggesting ideas when you're talking with them. This is, I think, super important. You want people also that have, second, the will to learn a lot and to grow. And this is also easy to see, like, you ask them, like, what's the latest skills that you learned? And it doesn't have to be professional. It can be, oh, yeah, I wanted to speak Chinese, so I took, like, Chinese lesson on an app. That's a great sign that they're, like, curious and they want to learn and grow, and that they will scale with you, which is super important. And last, maybe it's, I would say, resilience, because we are in the tech world where sometimes things are tough and not working out the way it should, and also everything is changing so fast. So you need people that go with the flow, don't take things personally, and that's what will make them succeed. Like,
I agree. Well, it's one of our operating principles: never take it personally. And as
so
a designer,
designer,
you get judged every single time on colors and stuff. So anyway. What's like as a CMO, you're selling a lot of projects internally. So what's your pro tip for selling internally to get everyone on board?
Yeah, I like this one. 3 advices. Start by selling the problem and not the project.
But
why you're doing this exactly, and like numbers, screenshots of like user quotes, or so start by the problem. Second, it's have the stakeholders involved in the decision being part of the project, like because people agree more easily when they actually are co-author on the project. So ask for insights, or how would you do this, or do you know someone I could talk to? So that's a great way to have them involved and not being like spectators or judges of the decision. And finally, always validate things on one-on-ones before you hold a meeting with everyone, because you can tackle the objections on one-on-ones before, and when you are on the big meetings, you already have won the hearts, and it's easier then to get your decision accepted.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, makes sense. What inspires you outside of work?
Inspire me, like in what sense? Like
you as a marketer, you're in a creative job, and so you need to think of creative ways of generating demand and stuff. So, is there like maybe content that you tend to look for every time? Things that you
actually, I kind of hate listening to marketing podcasts outside of job. To be honest,
so you're just doing them, but
no, but people are like, oh, I'm reading like marketing stuff, and on my holidays, I'm like, no, no. I mean, I read a lot of novels actually.
Okay.
I love it. I actually happen to have a Notion library where I do like summarize the novels I liked and why, and I love sharing this with friends when they go on holidays.
Okay. Last two questions, and we're gonna be good. Is there like any part of your job that you'd never let AI take from you, or would never like to automate?
Yeah, I think AI will probably be able to do most of the things we're doing right now. No, but joke aside, I think the strategic and creative side of things, like let me give you one concrete example. Recently, we are thinking with Erwan about how we're gonna organize the team next year and which roles we're gonna hire. And we asked AI how are the top scale-ups organized, and it gives you like option A, B, and C. But together we framed an option D that doesn't exist. I think that's more like Lemlist style. Good opening for next podcast. And we're trying to be creative, to think differently out of the box. And I think this is definitely something that I love doing, and that AI will probably have a hard time doing for a long time.
Okay, got it. And last one for you: is there anything, any personal project you have that you want to achieve aside from the job, your work?
Sleep.
It's perfect. It's a good project. Yeah, definitely. I'm not a parent yet, but I can get like the idea, definitely. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks a lot, Domitille, for being on the podcast. It was super interesting. I think you shared a ton of insights. I love the way you structured like your answers. Like I think it's when you are in a CMO role, you have to have the structure, coming up with frameworks, ideas, and explaining and being super into this education about how you also shape your mindset around in the end stuff that you do. So yeah, it was super interesting. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the questions. That was super